That's Rhian, Sheehan, and Arli Liberman from their new collaborative album Traces, one in which the two New Zealand-based musicians, composers, and producers join forces to create new ambient worlds together. We find Rhian in Wellington and Arli in Auckland, and begin our chat by talking about their recent immersive showcase at Neil Finn's Roundhead Studios.
That was a Dolby Atmos mix. So our record label Loop took the punt on mixing, allowing us to mix the album in Atmos for spatial audio for Apple Music, etc.
Right.
Which was great of them, really, because it really transformed the music into another dimension. So Ali and I spent a week up at Roundhead. Maybe was it a year after the album we made the album, Ali? I guess it was a wee while after we'd actually finished the album.
Yeah, I mean, also, I'd like to add to it that is me and Rhian's discipline is we mainly working with in the immersive world, in the cinema world, or in domes, or any kind of multimedia that requires more than two channels, more than stereo. So our natural tendencies is to actually stack up the sounds quite thick, and it's putting a lot of pressure on the poor two speakers. So that was really allowed the music to be shown the way it's sort of intended.
Right. So it's different than 5.1 surround sound, is it?
Yeah, there's more channels.
More channels.
So 5.1 obviously got like 5 channels.
Right.
And 6 to be fair. And this one has got 14 channels. So you just get much more, and rather than just having the sides around you, you also have the ceiling. Therefore, you can actually create objects as opposed to just like pinpoint panning. So you can actually create sounds that coming in shapes. It's really fascinating.
Yep, sounds good. And it sounded great at the Roundhead, so there you go.
Nice.
It's just a shame everybody doesn't have 14 speakers in their living room to check it out, but
well,
you never know.
It's technology will catch up at some point, and I think it will have some headset and things. I think at some point it's in the near, not too far future. I think this is where things are going to be living in.
Yep. So you mentioned that that event happened about a year after you made the record. So when did the record start? Tell me the genesis of the project. How did the two of you get together and decide to make this Traces thing?
Well, that's a good question. Gosh, I know we came together to play at a festival that we were kind of booked at, and we decided, we're very fond of each other's music and good mates, good friends, and so we got together and put a set together for a festival, a music festival called Earth Beats, a few years ago, and I guess it kind of all came to fruition out of that, really. And I think Ali and I just had this idea of why don't we take it further, and we're both on the same record label, so we kind of pitched the idea to Loop, and yeah, and that's how it began. Or have I got that completely wrong, Ali? Maybe there was more to the story than that.
It was also I met Rhian first when he did the music for this incredible exhibition by a mutual friend of ours, an visual artist, Joseph Michael, where he was projecting icebergs on top of the museum. I don't know if you've seen that exhibition, and the music and the soundscape was by Rhian. And I met him around that time, and I remember listening to the music, and I went and I met Rhian, and I told him, man, it would be so great to work together one day. And he's like, yeah, it would be. And then I stayed persistent, and we discovered that we're looking at life from a very similar angles, and we had a pretty much effortless connection and bond. And a part of the musical taste alignments, it was just, yeah, it's kind of rare when you're meeting people that you just feel very comfortable and free around. So there was a kind of a no-brainer that we're going to have to create something together.
All right. And so you did decide to create something together. What kind of discussion? How did you work together? Who did what? What kind of process did you go through? Was it different than what you normally do?
No, the idea was just to come together. Ali came down to my studio twice for like 2 4-day periods, and then we did some mixing and other things up at his studio in Titirangi. But no, the idea was just to come together and see what happens, really. So we both came into it very open-minded, but we did, I guess we'd put the restriction on ourselves that we wanted to use gear that was around us, in the studio, and try and keep away from the computer a little bit. And so lots of live guitars and synths, and Arli has this kind of interesting process, and this is why I wanted to work with him, because he's like no other guitarist I've ever worked with, that he uses his pedal board like an instrument, not just his guitar. So he processes a lot of sounds through his pedal board, and
Right.
just creates really interesting and unusual sounds. So that was a big part of the process. We would just sit in the studio in this room, and I'd throw sounds at him, or we'd come up with something, and he'd come up with something on guitar, or just pick up an object, and he'd make a little percussive sound, through his rig, and I'd sit down at the synth. And so it was just this process of coming together. We didn't know what it was going to turn out like, to be honest. And I was actually surprised at how quickly it all happened. We wrote and recorded most of the album in 8 days, which for me is
That's pretty impressive for any album. Yeah. That's very cool.
Yes. I think also the fact that we, again, we kept it very open and try not to put too many expectations on what this is need to be. But I feel like by the second day, like the morning of the second day, it was very clear for both of us that we're going to attempt to create worlds. Each world will be different. Some worlds will be moving, some worlds will be stationary. And what Rhian said before, we wanted to create that every layer that we introducing is a performative layer as opposed to a programmed layer.
Right.
To keep the human touch with the takes, and have things that are not perfect, or allow those happy accidents to emerge. And then Rhian was like, I think it'd be really cool to also decorate it and enhance it with couple of other players that we both really love. One of them is Ricky Gooch on percussion, and which again we ran it through the rigs again and created, give it a little different spin, and
Right.
incredible synthesis. Is that how you say it? Synthesis? Would you say that?
synthesis. Yeah.
Synthesis. Ed Zuccolo.
Yeah, Ed Zuccolo. So, but Ed Zuccolo added some beautiful little sprinkles, and played parts that, like Arli had this beautiful part in the track Imaru that he came up with on guitar, but I didn't kind of feel like it was working, that that repetitive sound on with particular sound. So we got Ed to kind of just play the same line on his Moog. And so it's just little things like that, like trying to just think outside the square. And but then Ed, so we kind of chopped up little bits that Ed did, and some of them became these beautiful little nuggets that are sprinkled through the album. So it was great to work with, and it was just a very quick session, that session as well, at a studio down here called The Surgery.
Right. Yes. So Lee Preble's place. So it sounds to me, from just hearing you talk about the tracks, that you kind of look at it rather than 8 separate tracks as one kind of whole. Is that because there's things sprinkled throughout from one song to the other, or one track to the other? Would that be more accurate?
Yeah, definitely chapters as opposed to tracks. And I think, and again, we really wanted to do what we love, and it's creating worlds through emotion, and it's just different angles of those different perspectives that we proposed.
All right. And you kind of touched on this, but I think I read in the stuff that I got sent that it was all created on analog instruments. Why is that important to you guys? And if it's true?
It's all a lie.
I thought so. Well, sometimes it is, so I got to check.
Most of it's true. Most of it's true.
I guess the analog approach, or again, was all about creating a true performance. So if we playing something and we're manipulating the sound to a take, to some of it will be like 6 minutes or even a 9 minutes take, is to have the discipline to craft something on the spot, or even do a few takes in a row, but just to keep keep the human touch. And we for some reason, both Rhian and myself, we really enjoying the kind of sci-fi tapestry, and those instrument and analog rigs usually would lend us towards that kind of texture.
Right, right.
Oh,
Okay.
I think in retrospect we were kind of influenced without knowing it, but maybe by this kind of dystopian world of the dystopian world of Blade Runner or something.
Right.
It's interesting. A few people that I've played the album to have said, "Oh wow, it really feels like the future, but the past at the same time."
Right.
So
Yeah.
it has this nostalgic quality to it. So I think that was in our head when we were working on it subconsciously. We were trying to, uh, we both share the same fascination for films and music
Right.
yeah, it was an interesting experience to come out of it and go, oh, actually this all works as a cohesive journey. It's really interesting. But I do think there was some, whether it was intentional or not, we were trying to create different kind of palettes and sound palettes and worlds for each track, but that all kind of connected together.
Gotcha.
But maybe not intentionally at the time. It was
Yeah.
completely subliminal, I think. But
Well, it's interesting because I'm in the middle, in addition to listening to your album, and I'm working on a radio show because it's the 50th anniversary of Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here" album.
oh
So I just got
yes,
through listening to that the other day, and I'm listening to Plateau, the final track on yours with the French kind of female voice at the end. And for some reason, it takes me to "Have a Cigar" by Pink Floyd, and then you're telling me about the analog production and techniques, and I'm thinking, well, that's probably what they were using as well. Is there any connection with what we hear on that kind of mid-70s prog rock?
Dans les vastes échanges cosmiques, la vie universelle va et vient en quantités inconnues, roulant tout dans l'invisible mystère des effluves, employant tout, ne perdant pas un rêve, ne pas un sommeil. Seulement un animalcule ici, émiettant un astre là, oscillant et serpentant.
yeah, I think that comes through a little bit with Arli's kind of guitar style. I hear it on the track "Power Cut." It has
Right.
You can hear a little bit of a Floydian kind of influence. I don't know if if you do, Arli, but I can hear it.
I just called David Gilmour to give us a little pass on that. No,
There you go. Why not? He's not doing
no,
much.
no.
He's got time.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We found ourselves in an incredibly unique position where, because, we're working so much in the world of screen, where people are asking us for our approach and our skills, but we ultimately serving a greater vision told by someone else. So it doesn't matter what we're going to offer, it still needs to get approved by someone else. Where here, we just did the same process, stacked it up really thick, but it was our decision making. So everything that make us feel those emotions that we set up to have before each of those journeys that we went on each track.
All right. Do you see yourself doing live performances, taken inspired or
Definitely, yeah. We are planning.
It's on the card.
We're
It's not
planning
announced
some.
yet, but it's definitely happening.
Definitely
And
happening.
and how will that happen? What form will that take? Will you have other people on stage with you, backing
Yes, I
tracks,
think.
all that stuff? You know,
No, I think the idea is to, and Ali's always been pushing for this as well. And I was a little bit, kind of in a conundrum about how the hell we're going to do this. But the idea is really to set up kind of a recording studio on stage
right?
with all our gear and kind of reinterpret the music and the tracks and get it as close to as we can to the album. But it'll be different, but it'll be fun and it'll push us into different territory, I think.
And both the musicians, both Ricky and Ed, they're gonna join us for the
Oh,
live
good.
show.
That'd be
It's gonna
cool.
be a quartet of yeah. I think some of those tracks we're gonna take them up to 11. Some of them we're gonna dial them down. We're just gonna try again, when we doing albums, we're kind of designing it to be user friendly to hear it again and again.
Yep.
And again, there were some areas in the album where we really pushed the dial up, but for live is the privilege of creating a one unique moment, and we wanna definitely elaborate. So if somebody really listen closely to the album and then go and listen to the live, they would hear how we evolve it and kind of change it a little bit for to create that one unique moment.
All right. Now, finally, I think there's also a visual aspect to the record, if I'm not mistaken. You got a guy named Sam Caldwell that created something visually that goes along with the sound. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, Ali connected with Sam at a party, I believe. Well, it wasn't Ali, but and then they, there was a random connection, but and then
I'm not gonna tell you what was where I my body
what was
was in the
happening at the
party.
party.
I don't know where my mind was. I
Okay.
just saw the guy sitting alone in a party, in a Willy Wonka party.
Of course.
It was really, and it was an actual literal chocolate factory, just for the small little detail. And he sat
That's
there.
the first time I've heard the word literal used in the right context.
And an actual, literally used
So
literally.
funny. All right.
People use that word like confetti these days.
I know, true. And I just like saw him sitting all by himself, and it was a bunch of artists and really amazing, wild people. And I asked him, "What do you do?" And he said, like, I'm a liquid artist. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And he said, I take aquarium and put a camera up here,
Yeah.
and I put a bunch of ink and glitters and minerals and salt and create those movements inside, and I just shoot it. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that should go on what Rhian and I do, because it creates a kind of a micro sensation, like you're inside of a big world, and it almost looked like we witnessing a natural phenomenon of some sort. It feels very organic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cosmic looking too, and very Freudian actually. I mean,
Yeah,
it kind of he's using techniques that go back to like that movie makers were making in the '60s, like
Right.
uh, 2001: Space Odyssey. The end scene, and I believe is similar. So it was it's quite cool to work with someone who was using kind of in a similar way to what we were doing, using analog and an analog principle to their art, which we were doing as well. So we avoided using AI, or it's so tempting these days to just whip up something and go, oh wow, it looks amazing. But so that it was nice to keep it kind of reasonably purist and
Yeah, I remember back in around 1980, 81, I did a video with Psychedelic Furs. They were doing a live performance, and we had this outfit called the Heavy Water Light Show who added to the thing. And they did a live they had a projector and oil on a screen, and they were pouring things on, and we projected it behind them and on the band. It looked pretty wild, actually. Sounds kind of like that, yeah.
I remember seeing some footage of Pink Floyd, or very, very early on, before they actually became big.
Yeah.
Even and they were doing the same thing. They had someone kind of very similar. They were doing the same thing. Like all the visuals were live, and someone was just something similar to a water tank.
Yep. Now, you mentioned AI. Do you have thoughts, feelings about it? Because it's turning into a thing faster than we can kind of keep up with it.
Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts about it. I don't know how much time we have, but I refuse to freak out. I think it's going to become a very refined tool.
Right.
And I think it will force us artists to adapt and develop our own organic voice even more. And it will become a genre eventually, I believe.
Right.
So I think it will definitely transform and reshape our field and many other fields. But I think if I'm a young artist, I would do everything in my power to spend a good 10,000 hours to develop sounds and approach where I don't need electricity, or I don't need a computer that guides me with what to do. I'll just try to make sure that I can rock up anywhere and do me.
I completely agree with Ali. Actually, I'm quite excited about AI and where it's headed. And I was having this chat to my son, who's a musician. He's actually up there today for RockQuest tomorrow with his band. But and I was saying to him that the one thing that AI will never ever replace ever is live performance,
right?
And that connection that an audience has with real players. This is not going to happen,
and real pheromone exchange.
Yeah, exactly. It happens. It's a real thing. But who knows who knows where we're going to be in 10 years? Maybe
Exactly. They were saying all the same thing about the internet and electric guitars, even when they started. So,
Yeah, electric guitars were like the end of the world.
Exactly. They found a way to
So,
work
I mean,
them in.
you know,
All right.
yeah.
So the record's out. What are you guys doing tomorrow? Before we wrap up, anything exciting? Release day?
I'll randomly be up in Auckland. So for my
good.
son's performance at RockQuest. So that's a good timing. So I'll come and hang out with Arli a bit. I think Arli's got a little bit of press, and maybe I do as well. So it's not like the old days where you'd kind of, you'd spend a day or two driving around to all the BNet stations and doing heaps of interviews. I think, music, the world is saturated now, and it's a different world, as you know.
Yes, that's a fact.
We're definitely gonna hang out and take the moment in, because it's been a long time coming, and I'm actually really proud of this, and I kind of hoping that this is just the beginning of many installments that Rhian and I do together.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.